Thank you so much for joining the session today. We're going to be talking about how to build your industry knowledge. And to me, just a little bit of background about me as you have wanting to know. My name is Lily. I was born in Vietnam until I was about 11 years old. Then I came with my family to the United States, where I grew up. And from there, I went to university in the United States. And then I came back to Vietnam to start working because I feel like I can contribute more to Vietnam. And I feel like I want to be a part of growing within this Asia, because I find this region to be extremely dynamic. And as such, I've been in this region for about 8 years. And the reason why I'm hosting a lot of series on career development is mainly because I've seen a lot of young professionals and college students, making the same sort of mistake over and over. And I was one, when I was 21 years old, I was exactly like you. So that's why I created this session, to share with you and to record, and especially with the emphasis of helping you to go toward a career that you really want to have. Professionals. Now, if you're a college student, right, you're going in a job interview. You are going up against maybe, let's just say, 50 other college students, and they are just like you. They don't have much work experience, right? And so the way that you answer the questions are very generic and very kind of like the same. There's one area that you can truly stand out. Of course, you can stand out based on your GPA, based on your grade, based on the classes you take. But that's just only one part of it. So how else can you truly stand out as a college student is to demonstrate during your job interview that you understand the company, that you understand the industry, that you understand their pain point, and that you are able to very quickly add value to your company and to your and to your clients. Let me just give you a very simple example. We just at my company hired for a position. He's been working for about a year and a half, and he interviewed with us to start working in sales, right? And with us, it's easily few hundreds people apply for one position. Very, very tough to get in. But the one thing that really stood out, besides like his sales experience and all that, but a lot of other people have sales experience as well, is that he started talking like the way our CEO talks. He started quoting things from, our mission statement. He started quoting things that what we want to achieve in the next 5 and 10 years. And he shared that he aligned his passion very much to our passion. Right? So just from that, the amount of respect that he have shown in the research, and it makes us feel like, well, this is what we spend 8 hours a day working on toward. It makes us feel like he's part of the family already. Versus like whereas other examples, I've interviewed young college students, they come in, or even young professionals, and they would ask me, oh yeah, I think your company does this and this and this. It's actually really, really painful to watch such process. And now another example is this. I actually about 2 years ago referred there was a job opening for a fresh grad at Google here in Singapore, and I referred the person in, and she only had 1 week to prepare for the job interview. And I know she studied really, really hard in school, but 1 week is a very short amount of time to start building up your industry knowledge, to start tracking about what Google has been doing in the past 10 years, right? To start reading about their current plans and to really understand what their expansions and where they want to go. So if you just start reading it now, it's just a very superficial level, and the interviewer is going to see right through it. So I would suggest for a young college student, you start tracking the industry trend, you start reading, make a daily habit, at least 6 months prior to looking for a job. At least 6 months. And as like people like Nam, who's already working for a little bit, building up your industry knowledge is extremely important as well for young professional, because then when you're having conversation with your colleagues, especially with your boss or your clients. If you are in a client-facing role, it's so important that you know what you're talking about, right? It makes them feel a lot more like safe. So let me just give you a very simple example, right? So the example was that about 3 years ago, I was working in the Vietnamese market, and at the time, I was working with CIOs, and I don't have an IT background, right? So I'm not going to sit here too much, get into the little details. I just read the high level industry trends. And a lot of the the CIOs I was working with are in banks. So I track the key term banks in Vietnam. And there are so many interesting articles that come up on a daily basis. And one of the really key articles that if you read this, you know right away, right? The State Bank of Vietnam is putting a lot of pressure on the banking industry in Vietnam to essentially acquire one another or to merge with one another so that it reduces the amount of players in the industry because it's not competitive. It's not productive to have so many players. But if you read that and you understand what it means that the banks essentially have to really improve their performance or they will die. As simple as that. They will be bought out, somebody will buy them out, or they will just simply die. Right? So essentially that's the case, and it's going to have consequences all the way to the bank. And IT is essentially the backbone of especially for banking industry. It provides the backbone infrastructure. So there's, I'm sure, a lot of pressure on the IT director. And I just read the article very fast. And then when I meet with him, I talk about this. And then he feels like, oh, okay, Lily is like somebody in my industry. She understands my pain points. She understands the pressures that I'm going through. And so, it's quite easy to build a relationship from there. Yeah. So this is why it's extremely important for you to kind of open up. And today I'm just going to show you multiple things. So there's a technical aspect of it, which is how are you going to go about tracking trends, right? And in how you're going to go about tracking trends, very simple. I'm going to showing you how to use Feedly. I'm going to show you how to use Google Alerts. I'm going to show you how to use YouTube and then TEDx, things like that, very easy. But there's also things that are very complicated because once you start tracking news, you don't want to get overload. I mean, there are thousands of news out there. You're not going to read everything. You have to selectively choose the one you should read. So how are you going to be able to choose which one you should read in a short amount of time? That's more of an art than a science, and I'm going to be going through this with you. So let me stop there and let me ask now. Alert is that it will start tracking with you keywords that you care about. Okay, so like for example, let's just take a very simple example, but you can track any keywords. And this is also more of an art than a science. So say e-commerce in Asia as an example. Okay, or but if you care about the other region, that's fine. You can do e-commerce, or you can do e-commerce and startup. Okay, so whatever word you want to put in the middle, and then you can put this as and or, but I would suggest you put and, right? So then the thing is like if you do e-commerce and you can do multiple setup. So let's do one at a time. Like the first one maybe we would just do e-commerce in Asia. Okay, it's very simple. Now under create alert, you go to show option, you go to RSS feed. Okay. Following so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you just click on create alert, whatever alert you want. Then after that, you see this icon here called alert. You click on it. Now, so what we're doing now essentially is that anytime, anywhere in the web, if there's an article written about e-commerce in Asia, they will send it to you. So you don't have to start like going to 10 different websites anymore. You're tracking specific term. So then you just copy this link on the top here, this specific link here, you click on copy, okay? Then you go to Feedly, which is a free account, and I suggest that people just go ahead and open. It's very simple. It'll take you like a minute to open a free account. Once you have a free account, oh see, it asked me to log in. I forgot my login. Okay. No. Actually, no. I match it with Google, so it should work. Okay, fantastic. So once you log in into your free account, you don't have it, just create one, no problem. After you copy, just go to the search button here. And here now, you can search, okay, for other things. Like, for example, if you want to track startup, so let me just do one thing at a time. Let's just still focus on the Google Alerts first. Just go ahead and paste link in here, hit enter, okay? And then you click on add, this button here called add, and then it's gonna add you where do you want to add this to. You can create a new collection called e-commerce, okay? And then you click on add, and then it's just gonna go there. So every morning now you're on the bus or on the train or you're in your commute or or you're just waiting at the post office so you have some time. You can, and this is also an app on your phone. You can pull up your phone. You can go directly on the left hand side here into the button e-commerce and then see what will pops up. Okay, but because we only like created right now, so nothing pops up yet. So that's one search. Then you can come back and you can do another search exactly like that. So now you do, you do e-commerce, maybe like e-commerce startup. Okay, so then so for each of those sections, you should do maybe like 5 or 4, different keywords you want to track. Now, the art is that the more accurate the terms, the better it is for you to track. So I'm moving now toward for you, teaching you something else that's very important. Don't read everything. It's just too much. Scan through the title and see if that title is interesting. If it is, read it. If it isn't, then don't. Okay, so because a lot of times you're gonna go through this and there's many articles and you're reading too much stuff, you're just gonna feel like you're not gonna. I rather you only read one good article a day, but it has to be really good, right? That's all I'm asking for. The rest you can just quickly, scan through. You who essentially all the key influencers that are really famous on Twitter for a specific topic. So I can click on influencer here as the last bar. I will search for a topic, for example, e-commerce. Okay, and so these are the people that are essentially very well respected on Twitter. So you can take a look at some of their names, then you can follow them on Twitter. So that's another way for you to follow key influencers. It's very important because then like if you just follow maybe 5 key influencers in your specific area, like e-commerce, they will pull all the information for you. So I highly also suggest you using Twitter in this sense because then like, you don't have to even go to Feedly if you really want to, because if you're following these people, if you found the right people, specifically in that industry, they will automatically choose really interesting article in e-commerce and then you just like select through. But you can do both. Yeah, does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Another tool that is very powerful is called YouTube. I know you go to YouTube and watch all sort of funny videos on here, but it's actually really cool if you want to track for people that you care about. Okay, so Nam, let's just say, is there any specific companies that you want to learn more about?
Would be Facebook.
Okay. The thing is, for a company like Facebook, if you just type in Facebook like this, you're better off, like just don't type in Facebook because, Facebook is just too much like on Google, on YouTube. You're not going to find it. What you want to do in Facebook is you want to find out famous people at Facebook. Like as an example, CEO Sheryl Sandberg. So before you go into YouTube, go onto, Facebook, read some information about who are the founders, who are the famous, who are the C-levels there, and then you search for them by name. So in this case, you can do Facebook interview as an example to see who are the famous people at Facebook that have given interview. Okay, so like this is an example here. Charlie Rose, who is a very famous news anchor in the U.S. and has an interview with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. Let me stop on this. So then, if you are really interested to know about the company, about the culture, about how they hired, how they think, I would suggest you watch as much as a video as possible, specifically, on like on the founder of the company. Yeah, so I would go through this and I would watch all the YouTube videos about the founders of the company and what they say. Specifically, what they say is really kind of important because the more you watch the way they talk, the more that you understand their words. And during the interview, you can use those same words. And that is going to, make the interviewer feel like, oh, you really understand the company. Or even, you might not want to interview for this company, but let's say Facebook is your client, right? And you understand a lot about this sort of thing, then it would also be really, really useful for you. Yeah, but like the worst thing to go to interview is to be like, oh yeah, so do you know who Sheryl Sandberg is? And you're like, no, I don't. Right? I don't think you're going to be setting a very good impression there. But if you say things like, actually, Mark Zuckerberg is somebody I really respect. I watched an interview with him online, and he was just sharing about like one of the reasons why he one of the key culture about a company is what they consider called fail fast. That means he's not afraid of failure, and that means failure is a part of progress. So if you're gonna fail, and you will fail, just fail fast so that you can quickly move on and make progress. So this is his key message, and I am a person that also shared his mentality, and that's why I really would like to work for this company. Yeah. So if you talk like that, it's make it so much easier for the other person to understand that you have really done the homework. Any questions, ma'am?
So far, no question.
Okay. Are you currently doing this? Are you currently going to Google and like following and watching a lot of YouTube, specifically of the founders of the company?
So far, I only use like Facebook. So I like check Mark Zuckerberg, for example. And for YouTube, I don't usually use it often for those kind of thing because usually when I like go for the interview, like get the interview invitation, then I start to search on YouTube and other channels.
Okay.
So
First of all, you want to start doing this early on. Yeah. What you want to do is essentially identify 5 companies you really respect and you really want to track and you really want to work for. Okay, then start, because you're not going to have time if it's like the week before, and then you're going to be so overwhelmed and stressed anyway. Right? So you're not going to have time to really think about it. So you want to start tracking about the company now. Plus, the other thing is that these interviews, they are really inspirational. Like, even if you just like watching during lunch, you were just eating at your desk and you have nothing to do, you want to pull up this video and you start watching it now because they're really inspirational, and maybe you can start like applying what he's talking about right now in your life, so that when you during the interview you have something actual examples to say, like for example, you can say things like this. I was watching a YouTube video about Mark Zuckerberg 6 months ago, and he was talking about if failing is a part of progress, and you should fail fast so that you can learn. And as an example, I've been practicing that. And like for 2 months ago, there was this really important project that I was doing for my company, and I didn't know exactly how to approach it, but then I thought, okay, let's just set up some multiple options, and we will go down the path of the first option, but we will put in some measures so that if the option A doesn't work, we immediately move to option B. And so I've actually been practicing some of the things Mark Zuckerberg have shared, and I found it to be very useful. Now, if you actually have an example like that to share during the interview, your chances of getting the job is much higher because it show wow you actually really know the company and you not just like listen to it but you actually put it into practice. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to show you next is what I call podcast. Have you ever listened to podcasts before?
I did long time ago.
Okay, so Podcast is an app that you can download. It's already if you have an iPhone, it's already on your iPhone. It's free. Okay, and if it's on your if you don't have an iPhone, you can download it, and it looks like this on your iPhone. Okay, look like this. So it's free. And podcast is where think of it as kind of like a radio station in the old days, right? Where people go on it, they would interview other people to share knowledge, and there's so much to learn. I listen to podcasts on a daily basis of the people I respect, get into their head, get to know what they think, and it taught me so many new things. Yeah, so this is actually really important for you to just kind of like to start like listening to podcasts. So first download the app on your phone. Once you download the app, there are many different sort of like podcasts that you should recommend you should follow. For me, I like this podcast, Tim Ferriss. I think that would be Tim Ferriss podcast. Go back to web. Okay. And when you actually just go into the podcast, it's difficult to show it to you here on this, but when you go in, just type in Tim Ferriss, and it's going to give you all these articles, all these podcasts. And each podcast may be like about, an hour or two, something like that. And Tim Ferriss is like this really cool guy. He's done a lot of interesting things, and he is interviewing essentially industry leaders for all over the world. Really random topic as well. But it's more like about how these successful people think. So in this podcast specifically I'm showing you, it's not necessarily to build a specific industry knowledge like logistics or like how to do logistics or how to sell AdWords or how to whatnot. It's more like how do successful people think and how do they run their life, right? So with these sort of podcasts, it's to build your daily habits more than building your industry knowledge. But I love these podcasts, and I think you should definitely learn from these people. Yeah. So just go through these. This is one, what I call Tim Ferriss. Another one that I like a lot is called Rich Bro podcast. And you just go to first download, go to your phone, download the thing called podcast. You just type in Rich Bro, then just click on subscribe. It's all free. And then here again, he's interviewing really awesome people, also CEOs of famous companies and co-founders of famous companies, and to getting to know what they think. So highly recommend podcast. Okay. All right. So I think I'm just going to close up with one last thing, and that's what I call TEDx. Hi, of course, TED Talk is just fantastic. You can watch the TED Talk directly on YouTube, or you can go to the TED Talk here. And, there's a specific topics here that you can click on, right? Or you can search specifically by keywords. And do make a habit of watching these TED Talks. Because essentially, I believe that you're the average 5 people around you. So if the people around you, just talk about like watching movies all day, going to the mall, they just think really simply, then maybe you're not challenging yourself enough. But if you start watching these TED Talks and watch about what the world leaders talk, watch about the experts, what are they talking about? It could really open up your mind, and it would dare you to dream bigger. So I highly suggest you do these things and do them on a daily basis. So for me, my day. So for me, my day habit is very simple. right? In the morning, I go to work, and on the train, I would listen to either a TED Talk or a podcast. Yeah, I get to work. Then maybe during my lunchtime, I would open up Feedly here. I would open up Feedly. I would go through the one that I already saved. Like for example, if I really care about some important area, then I just go through my Feedly. Like this is I'm tracking about entrepreneurs and being productive and things like that. Then I just track. Then I would just go through it, and then I would see the ones I really like, then I would read that. I don't try to read too much. I just try to read maybe one or two. That's enough. But it has to be good. And it is also really good. What you can also do is that you can copy this link here. Then you can share it on your LinkedIn profile, or you can share on your Facebook profile. But when you do share, right, when you click on share, what you want to do is you want to write one summary sentence, right? So like, for example, I read this article on productivity and it teaches me something new, XYZ. I, would love to share with you. So you want to summarize it. And if you're doing this, eventually the people around you, they would think, like, for example, you connected to your boss on LinkedIn, right? All of a sudden, like, you're posting really good articles on LinkedIn about the the industry trends, right? Your colleagues and your boss starting to think of you as somebody, very knowledgeable. And knowledge is definitely power, right? So I'm actually teaching you something that for the long term will make you so much more respected. Um, like for example, as for me, I walk into a room and sometimes I would have, clients meetings with C-levels, executives like CEO, CFO, COO of certain companies, and I would never be scared of anyone because I know my knowledge is solid. I know whatever they talk about, I can match it, and I can even try to teach them something new that they might not know because I read so much, because I listen. Also, a lot of young people come and ask me, so how do I build confidence, right? So how do I make sure that I could get a job promotion, or how do I add value during conversation? There's no easy answer, my friends. Unfortunately, it's not like I can teach you a trick, but if you start reading, and leaders are readers for sure. Somebody was asking, what was this? Somebody was asking Bill Gates, if you can pick one superpower, what would you pick? Right? And he said, instead of like saying flying or being invisible or something like that, he said if he get to pick one superpower, he would pick the ability to read faster. This is what Bill Gates said. So leaders are readers for sure. And again, the only reason why I know this is because I heard it in a podcast. So when you read a lot, especially interesting thing, you will become a very interesting person. And naturally, people, will just gravitate toward you to learn.